welcome to the show. I am so happy to have you today, and I'm thrilled for this conversation that we're going to be having. We were just chatting in the green room, Eric and I, who is a CEO, founder of the D&M Roofing and Siding Company, as well as author of 3 different books and more coming, so I've heard. Frequent speaker at RoofCon, among many other industry events. And y'all, we're so privileged to have him here today because I don't know many others who are as genuine and forthright as Eric, and you're about to just kind of get a sneak peek into a conversation we were just having in the green room that we're bringing over here around how to identify what is most important in life. It is so easy for us to be living in reaction to those around us. And so, especially the way that we're running our business, we're constantly watching what our competitors are doing rather than actually being led off of what we know what's right based on our own data that we've got conjured up over the years. And so, Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you. I'm excited. This will be fun.
Likewise. Eric, I asked you first, kind of what has gotten you to this point? And we've been talking about over the last year, some things that have been on your mind. And I'd like to actually camp out there first. As we were really diving into, you had a coach and you kind of came to this crossroads in your business where you've made a decision around how to position your life today to get you to where you want to be in the future. So I'd love for you to just kind of talk us through that process, as you're planning ahead, looking forward to the next 25 years. What are some of the questions you found yourself asking last year with your coach that have informed the direction over the last 12 months?
Great question. There was a couple of things that we were discussing when it came to that, and the thing that jumps out first was what we talked about originally was everything that I do inside of all of my businesses is planning so that I can have freedom, right? So it's not about me making up new things for me to do so that I can be busier. Because I don't want to be busier. I want to be more productive, right? But I don't want to be busier. So everything that I do is trying to build something that has a system and a process to it so that I can empower other people to be able to have success, and so that I can have the freedom that I want to have to be able to spend time with my daughter and my wife and be able to go to every single one of my daughter's soccer games and, watch her grow up and be able to do all those things. Because that was a fear that I had when my company was very small, when the roofing side of my company was very small. I was working 13-hour days, 14-hour days, and had now I didn't have a kid at the time, but like I was working, 5, 6 in the morning until 10, 11 o'clock at night, trying to get stuff done. And I knew that wasn't sustainable, but when you're in your 20s and early 30s, it's like, I can do this forever. You learn pretty quickly that you can't, and not only that you can't, but that you don't really want to, because that's not the thing that's fulfilling, right? I think we all need to do that so that we know what it looks like. Kind of like I think everybody should probably work in a service industry for a little bit just to like understand what those people go through, in dealing with people. But like, I want to be able to empower my people to become better. Not to just become better employees or, whatever it is, or better producers, but to become better people, right? Like, how am I helping the people that work inside of my, multiple different companies? How am I leading them to be healthier, right? How am I leading them to be better at home with their families, right? One of the things that we do at all of our, let's just say at a Christmas party, is that I take the time in the beginning of the dinner to make all of the spouses stand up, right? And I thank all of the spouses of my employees because I know that they have to deal with, there's certain times a year where our guys are working really, really, really long hours because they're in the middle of a storm season, right? And I know that that's stressful, not just for the guy that's doing it, it's stressful for the spouse at home, right? Whether it's a husband, a wife, or whatever it is, it's stressful for them too, and their kids that might not get to see them as much. And so I really want to make sure that I'm doing that because that's what really fills my bucket.
I love that you talked about fulfillment, because I actually was asked this question today. I'm working on, our book launch, and we were talking about different services that could come from that. but she asked a question that was just so good. And I think so many of us don't ask this of ourselves. And it's really, truly, what is the thing that is life-giving to you? What does fill your bucket? What is fulfilling? Because with all the myriad of opportunities within the business itself, there's so many different facets that you could be expending energy. And as the owner founder, you're probably passionate about many of them, but it doesn't mean it's reciprocal. Where what you're giving, you're actually receiving in terms of it's actually filling your cup. So how did you go about identifying that for yourself?
Ooh, I spent, so I have a story that I tell on stage all the time, where one of the very first like retreats or masterminds or whatever you want to call it that I ever went on, was a friend of mine by the name of Sam Taggart put on this event in Puerto Vallarta. And we had to, part of the trip was we got dropped in the jungle next to a stream or something. And all we had was a chair and we had a journal. And we were spaced out like 100 yards apart from all the other participants. And we weren't allowed to leave our 10 by 10 area. And so we weren't allowed to speak from 8 a.m. in the morning until the next day. So we couldn't talk. We didn't eat. We weren't allowed to eat. We didn't eat breakfast. We were given a jug of water. And then and then I think we got to eat dinner that night at like 9:30 or something like that. But then we didn't get to talk. Like we all sat in a room, didn't get to talk. But all we did was sit there and journal. And one of the things, like he would give us prompts of, like what to journal about. And one of them was identifying everything that we do on a daily basis, right? And then kind of grading all of those things based on, are we good at them and do they fulfill us, and like do we actually like doing those things, right? And so my list was, and this was like 8 years ago, and my list was really long of shit that I do, right? But it was really short when it came to the things that I really enjoyed doing, right? And so like that gave me this like really clear sense of, I've got these people that work for me, but am I utilizing, the resources that I have in proper delegation? And I know that's very businessy sounding, but like if I can't delegate these things out to be able to free up my mind, then I can't be 100% all in on the things that I love doing because I'm so distracted by everything else.
I love the delegating what's in your mind, because there is something about the letting go of everything that's there that you've been carrying. And, there's something about that really requires trust in your team. Among other qualities, what would you say? I mean, what were the number two or main two qualities that were necessary for you to actually start releasing? And is it even control, or is it just, I'm going to intentionally start delegating? You just hadn't even tried yet.
A lot. So for me, the beginning, it was letting go of ego, right? Because I'm the fucking best at everything. Like I can do everything better than everybody else, right? And so like when I first started letting go, like I knew I had to do it, but it was figuring out how I do them like one at a time. So like that made it easier for me if I was like, okay, like if I'm speaking in just the sense of the roofing company, right? It was like, okay, I'm gonna let go of production, right? I'm gonna let go of dealing with, the crews and the ordering and the estimating and blah, 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 because I've been doing that for 20 years. And like I'm really, really, really good at it because I've been doing it. I had been doing it for a really long time. But I was like, I need to get that off my plate because that doesn't really move the needle in the business. So it was figuring out what to do one at a time and then letting go of the ego of, it doesn't have to be me, right? It's that old adage of like, if I can get somebody to do it 80% as good as I can, you know what I mean? Like, then that's good enough, right? Like, because if it's off my plate, so I can focus on me.
It's like the 80%. And was it 80%, 80% good enough, or is it 70, 60? Like what was your kind of your metric?
I mean, I based it off of, what I was told at the time, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it was, everybody tells you that 80% or whatever. What I what I ended up learning was they end up being better than you are at it
Yeah.
because it's all they're focusing on, right? So if they're only focusing on one or two things where I was focusing on 15 things, after a certain amount of time, they become better at the job that you were doing anyway because they've compartmentalized that job and that's the only thing that they're focusing on. So it ends up being if you end up letting it go and you give it time to nurture and grow, they're going to end up being 110% better at the job than you were to begin with because it's the only thing that they're doing.
Right. They can't help it unless they need to be fired. They're not a
Right.
competent human. Right. But anybody who's doing that one isolated thing, I love that. And somebody here in the chat said, Craving Life 22 said, getting rid of ego leads to true freedom, which, I mean, Eric, you said at the very beginning that freedom is the goal. So
Right.
what are the other core tenets that you've kind of established? Let's say freedom's the pursuit. Let's say it's, kind of the target. You've got these pins in the bowling alley. Letting go of ego is perhaps one of those to achieve, okay, now I've got success. What are the others there that you've had to either conquer or even incorporate? Maybe you've had to knock down some pins, but maybe intentionally put some in there. What have you had to do in that regard of what have you had to either let go of or conquer in yourself over the last, specifically, let's say 8 years? You said 8 years ago you were kind of in that place.
Yeah.
So along the way.
Yeah, I mean, ego really ties into all of them, I think, because it's letting. For me, it was having to change. I did a lot of work with my old coach. Fucker retired, and it really threw me off. But we did a lot of work on getting me to level and getting me to a level place to like breathe and be able to react to situations because um, I would have a tendency to overreact to certain
Right.
things, especially if they weren't done exactly the way that I envisioned them to be done. Right, like I would set these expectations. So I guess maybe there's a pin is understanding that expectations are can really like they can really be a big problem if you're if what ends up happening isn't exactly aligned with what your expectation was. And so then having the acceptance to be able to be like, okay, this is what happened, what are we doing now, right? So quick backstory, a lot of all of I have no idea what you know about me and what you don't, but a lot of my lessons and a lot of the things that like I incorporate into my life and my business and the people that I work with are based in my 16 and a half years of sobriety, right? So like I've been sober for 16 and a half years. I was an absolute train wreck, went to jail, like ruined lives, mine included. Was looking at 5 years in prison and like had all these like awful things that I was facing. And a lot of it was because of my ego and control. And I had no idea how to accept outcomes that I
Mm.
didn't really actually have control over. Right. And so I've had to do a lot of work over the years to be able to learn how to do that. Where now, when something we're going to call bad, right, that could be perceived as bad happens, that I've learned to be able to accept it and realize that there really is no bad or good. There just is. And then it's dealing with whatever is in that moment. Right. And so I spend a lot of time teaching and coaching my people that work for me, not just clients of mine, of that principle, right? That like there is no good or bad. Like, yes, we perceive things as good or bad, right? But like there just is. And it's like, what are we doing with the is that is happening in the moment?
Hmm. So good, man. And when you said acceptance just a minute ago, I kind of, my ears perked up because I was wondering if that was the case. I've heard that those 12 main steps and lessons are so wildly applicable for other areas of our lives. Eric, we're not taught anything about emotional intelligence for the most part in schools as children. It's not at all a part of our repertoire of education. And then we wonder why relationships are so hard. And we wonder why we can't control ourselves and don't know how to deal with emotions because we're taught to ignore them or suppress them at best. It's just like pretend that it's not there and carry on with your life. So to this point, I just really appreciate you saying that. And I wanted to ask a quick question actually that came from the chat. Somebody asked, your group that you attended where you were saying that all you guys did was basically journal, no food, no conversation. What was that called? Was that a mastermind? Like what
Yeah,
was
it was Sam Taggart's Circle. It's called.
Okay.
He still does it. I'm not in it anymore because it became too big and it wasn't as intimate as it used to
Yeah.
be. And it was literally why I started like my small accountability group that I have, because I miss the intimacy of that small group. Like when he started the Circle, it was 15 of us, right? Like maybe 15, 18 of us for like a couple of years. There's like 150 people, 200 people in it now. And so it kind of lost its intimacy that it had back then. But back then, when it was like 15 or 20 of us, I mean, I'm still friends with half of the guys that were in
Cool.
that original group. So yeah, it was an amazing, amazing experience in my life.
Wow. I think we need more of that. I'm glad you started one yourself, and we're looking to launch the Knowing community here in the next week or so. And it's just wild how much we're all searching for it. We're searching for like the camaraderie of, am I
Yeah.
going to be seen and known and kind of like called forth, Eric? Like even when we learn to do it for ourselves, to be in spaces where you are championed to become a better version rather than just being, and this is where I actually want to ask you, there's a question embedded in this comment, rather than just accepting where you are in life. So with this concept of acceptance and just accepting what is and recognizing what is, and it's neither good nor bad, how do you create and maintain a vision for something better, quote unquote better, right? Because if it's what is and there's neither good nor bad, then who's to say better or worse?
Mm. So for me, it's not about for me it would be about identifying what I want and how I get there, right? And then whatever the checkpoints are that are in between, which are the um, events that happen in the journey, right? It's about
Yeah.
understanding that the events that happen in the journey aren't necessarily good or bad, right? It's the old, you've heard the adage, I'm sure, like everybody's told it 100 times probably on stage, but that old Chinese proverb of the guy, have you heard that with the guy on the mountain or whatever?
It's ringing a bell.
Okay, so I'll butcher it here really quick, but like
Yeah.
there's this old proverb of that there's this up in the hills of China or Japan or somewhere in the 1400s or whatever. There's a farmer and his son or something, and the farmer's son, they're out of money. They can't make any money with their farming. Blah blah blah. And the son breaks his leg, and they're like, "Oh my God, we're never going to be able to make any more money again because my son broke his leg." Yada yada yada. And the guy comes up and goes, "Maybe." Right. And then the military's rolling through town and can't take the son to go to war because he's missing a leg, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're so lucky, like you're not going to lose your son to war, like you're so fortunate." And he's like, "Maybe." And the cycle just
Yes.
continues with that, right? And like you just don't know what these events during this journey are. You still have to set an endpoint, right? Like you still have to set, not an endpoint, but like you have to set your vision or your goal of what you're trying to achieve. But during that journey to achieve it, to obtain that legacy or that whatever it is that you're reaching, for, it's understanding that you can accept what happens during that journey and then react to it appropriately in the way that you need to keep you on the track that you're trying to go down. That's how I see it. I could be totally wrong,
I
but
love
that's
that.
how I see it.
Yeah, well, and frankly, that takes so much practice, among other things, of just allowing for it. You mentioned this earlier before we got on, or I think you mentioned something along the lines of being able to let go of the business so that you can, and you've got this other business which I didn't share in the introduction, but Inventory HQ, correct? That's
Yeah.
the name of the SaaS program for roofing companies. And beyond roofing, is it just all construction?
Yeah. Any trade that has material and job costing, basically. Yeah.
Okay. I really, really love that concept because over the past year or two, in you letting go of the business, you were able to effectively be freed up to have a vision for something different. Not to say it's bigger, right, better or worse, but just something different. Because if we're so narrow in our focus and really clinging to outcomes, we effectively are unable to step back and examine and zoom out and see the potential for what could be. And that is also part of what is. So it's like, what is like this beautiful painting, but if we're so narrowed in our specific little stratosphere within that painting, we're missing out on a bigger picture. So even just taking that micro step back to see what encompasses further. And I wonder if just being able to manage those emotions and the attachment to what it is that we're looking at, that inhibits us to be able to take that step back and see the additional possibility for other businesses, for opportunities to provide for your family, even just for what fills you up. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I mean, I agree. Basically, I mean, you're reaffirming everything that I already said, right? I mean, we're in congruence there. I now get my bucket filled by being able to step back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where before I thought my only role was to be like, because my roofing company, to give you an example, like was started by my grandfather back in the 60s, right? The name of the roofing company is D&M Roofing. His name was Delton Mayers. So like literally the business that I own today and that I run and that everybody works in with me is not only a legacy of my grandfather, but was named after him, right? And so because of that, I was like, I felt like I had to be in it all the time because like my grandpa didn't let anybody outside of our family even inside of the organization,
Wow.
right? Like it was a true mom and pop, like grandma answered the phones, grandpa, like was the guy. I came in so that he could have somebody help. Like I ran crews, right? Like I was a worker starting when I was, a teenager. I was working on crews and learning the actual trade. And then I learned how to sell and I learned how to estimate. But he didn't let anybody in from outside of the family into this company because he didn't trust anybody, but he also didn't know how to lead other people.
Right.
Like he just was never taught that. He was never taught that lesson, right? And so I always knew growing up in high school, I always knew that this was what I wanted to do, but I also knew that I wanted to do it differently, but I didn't know what differently meant. And so like that was what I had to spend a lot of time learning. Like there wasn't a class on how to grow your contracting company, right? Like there was no, you don't go to college to learn that shit, right? I mean, I quit school because I couldn't find a parking space. Like true story. I drove around, couldn't find a parking space. And I was like, fuck this place. And I called my grandpa and I was like, you got any leads I can run today? And he's like, don't you have class? And I'm like, not anymore. He's like, what do you mean not anymore? I'm like, I'm fucking done with this bullshit. I'm done giving them my money for nothing. Like they're idiots. Like none of them, I'm in a business school and they don't know shit about business. They read a fucking book. I'm like, no, I'm out. And so he was like, are you sure? And I'm like, I'm sure. He's like, okay, then I got leads for you to run. And that was literally how I quit school. So
what a good story.
yeah. And it's truly 100% accurate. Like I remember driving around the parking garage going, I can't find a place. And so like, I was so dialed in to that all the time that when people would come up to me and ask me for like new ideas or talk about things, I'm like, dude, this is it. This is all I know. Right. I would say that. I remember saying that, like, this is all I know. And it's like, no, it's not, Eric. Like, you know, a lot of other things because of the lessons that you've learned inside of this one organization. How do you take them outside of it? Right. And I think people watching and listening are the same way and they just don't know it. Right. They might just not be self aware enough to know, like, all of these lessons that I've learned inside of this little ecosystem that I might be in. I have no idea what I could take from that to pull out to put into something else that might fulfill me a little bit more. It doesn't mean I stop doing this thing. It just means what else can I do to make my life more impactful and to make my life more fulfilled?
One of the things that just kind of piqued my interest as you were sharing that story is, you probably felt that way towards school all along, but then the lack of finding the parking spot was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it's just interesting. It's like, how can we pay more attention and listen more along the way to avoid wasting time and maybe even years? If we're just kind of pulling aside. So that, to that point, here's the thing that's interesting around this question of, well, how do we know what's important in life? How do we determine what's important to us? I actually asked the president of Jiffy Lube, who grew the company to what it was and then stepped back, but he grew it nation to be a national organization. And I asked him, what's the number one piece of advice you would give to pretty much any entrepreneur? And he said, always take, he said, 8 hours every other week or so to simply just exist outside of the business, to just kind of be curious and just reflect and allow for creativity and to just be outside of it. And who knows what can happen. So exactly to your point, it's taking time to get outside of even our day-to-day life, like school or whatever it was that you found yourself in, that allowed for you to actually get clear on, no, this is the right path for me. And so I just love that. And it's so poignant because regardless of industry, regardless of market, regardless of even career, every single one of us can learn from that, because it is the activation and taking time to nurture the right hemisphere of the brain, which is effectively where our emotions live, where the creativity lives. It's kind of like those juices to step back. And in
Yeah.
so doing, it's like, okay, that's where acceptance can be because it resides there. But are we even taking enough time to allow for that to come about?
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further and say, like what he said is 100% accurate and true, because I get more inspiration when I'm outside of my world, right? Like I go take a trip and I come back with 87 ideas because everybody freaks out in my company. Like, fuck, Eric's going on vacation again. And when he comes home, he's going to have 87 things that he's going to want us to implement and try out and run through. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, guys, that's what happens. But it was the reason that I titled my book what I titled my book, and shut the fuck up and listen more, because people don't listen anymore, like to just sit and like listen. And there's a lot of different nuances of that, right? Like in different contexts of what that phrase means. But like in this context, it's like, are we taking the time to actually sit back and listen to what is happening around us, right? Or are we so infatuated with us that we have to keep fucking yapping, and we have to keep talking, and we have to make sure that everybody in the room knows how smart we are, even though we probably aren't, right? And like we have to always be like, I've got the best idea, whatever it is. But like I've learned more going into rooms that I thought I didn't belong in, and absorbing just absorbing, right? Until it was truly time to participate. Where most people will go into a room and think, I have to talk so much that people think I belong here, right? That's exactly when they're like, this guy does not belong in this room at all.
We've let our secret out. Keep your mouth shut.
Like, shut the fuck up and listen. I don't know that when anybody ever asked me that question that you asked him, of like, what can you do to be better, to get ahead, to raise your status, to whatever it is, my answer every time now is that.
So good. Did you ever have a moment where it was like, oh, you learned that, or was it just kind of instilled in you? Was it a painful process to learn that lesson?
It was more of a realization, because I've always been like a quiet introvert. So like
Mm,
I'm very, very introverted, right? I'm a trained extrovert. Um, like I love speaking on stage, right? I can sit in a room with 10,000 people and do a keynote and like not be nervous whatsoever. I love doing stuff like this. I love one-on-one or small group conversations and coaching. You put me in a room with 50 people that I don't know and I have to mingle, I want to blow my goddamn brains out. Like, I mean, it's awful, and it's anxiety ridden for me. Like, I don't do small talk very well. Like, this is the kind of conversation that I enjoy having, right? Or like really being able to pour into somebody, right? Like, I love being able to do that. And so I had the realization that the more that I listened and absorbed, um, the more I was able to help others. And I really learned that, I'm going to go back to the sobriety thing again. But I really learned that when I first started years ago going to AA meetings, because I would go to AA meetings and there'd be these new people that would come in, like newly sober or trying to get sober, and they'd come in and just yap. And it's like, what do you have to bring to the table? You don't know a goddamn thing. Like, just shut up and listen a little bit. And then once you've listened, then you can share to try and help other people, right? Like, you haven't got to step 12 yet, right? So what step 12 is when you help other people, right? You're not there. You're 8 days sober. You don't know what you're doing. So maybe absorb and listen instead of acting like you know everything, right? And so that was where it came from, because I'll have like a new sponsee come and they're like, Eric, what should I do? What should I do? And I'm like, shut the fuck up. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, you don't know anything. So you're not going to teach me anything right now. So just shut up. I don't just listen to me right now. And then we'll get to that in a minute. Right. And so like it all kind of stemmed from that. And that's why I said all the lessons that I learned in that journey of getting clean are the same lessons that I use today in my life and my business. I mean, I use them with my family. I use them with people at work. I use them everywhere. And if you go to a mastermind and they have you do exercises or any of those little things that we do, right? And it's like, write this down and let's be self-aware. I can show you 100% in the 12 steps where they stole that exercise from. And you paid $35,000 to go to this thing, and they're like, "Hey, write these things down, and then you're
And they got it from the 12 steps.
Person." Yeah, and I'm like, "Bitch, I did that for free. I just had to go to jail to fucking be forced to go in that room, but like, I didn't even get charged for that. Will you pay me $35,000 to run you through the steps? Fucking deal. Let's go. Sign up. I'll do that with you." Yeah, I mean, that's where it all came from.
Right.
I mean, it's all based on the same premise, right? And so it's life lessons that have nothing to do with getting sober. None of it has to do with getting sober. It's easy to fucking not drink. That's the easy part. Just don't do it, right? But the hard part is figuring out how to live, right? And so that's what it teaches you, is it teaches you how to live. And I don't care if you're a normie or you're a drunk or you're an alcoholic or you're a drug addict or you're not, and you're totally normal, right? All of those lessons are ways to teach you how to live. And all of us are trying to figure out how to live, and how to live with regret, how to live with remorse, how to live with screwing something up, how to live with fear, how to live with anger. You know what I mean? Like all those things that we're dealing with, that's what we're trying to figure out how to do, is how to live with those things. The booze and the drugs were just a byproduct because I didn't know how to live with those things. So I decided to mask it with mountains of cocaine and alcohol. Like that's all that was. You know what I mean? So like once I learned that, like that's what makes it a game changer.
You know, it's wild how much it really is just a learning to live. How to regulate emotions, how to let go of anger, how to forgive yourself. You know, it's just, in one sense, it's so simple, yet it's not. We're not taught even how to regulate our own breath as kids. When we get so angry and then kids have tantrums, it's like, well, that's a very physiological reaction. It's not something so deep because they're 3 years old. You know, it's really just learning how to control your body. And man, I so appreciate you saying that, Eric. If you had to pick one of the 12, what would you say has been the most impactful for you? And it could be, you know, one personal and then another one for the business.
I mean, I'm going to have to give you three, because there's a reason that they're in order, right? Because you have to do them in order, because like you can't do step 4 and 5 until you've really completely finished 1 through 3, because then 4 and 5 don't make sense unless you've done it, right? So like you can't skip ahead. And so like one can only be so impactful unless you did the others. But what I'll say is the three biggest lessons that I learned are this. One was making a list of everybody that I've ever harmed in my life, and then realizing the role that I played in it, and realizing that I have to clean up my own shit and not worry about what other people do. Right. And so, like, that's hard for a lot of people to do, is to understand, like, oh my God, that person really harmed me. That person really pissed me off, or like that person cheated on me, or that person did X or stole money from me, or whatever it is, right? But then actually sitting down and having to write down on paper, what role did I play in that? Maybe it was super minor, right?
Right.
But what role did I play, and what could I have done differently? So that's something that I use inside of my business, because every time there's some kind of a blow up or a situation or whatever it is at work, and everybody's blaming everybody else, I'm like, hey, I'm with you. I agree with you and I support you 1000%. But will you take the time to write down what you could have done differently in that situation? So that's the first one that changed my life first, right? Then taking the ownership of those things and having to actually go to the people that you harmed to make amends to them. We can all sit here and be like, I was wrong, right? And like look in a mirror and be like, I fucked up. I shouldn't have done that. Boo on you, Eric, right? Like that was horrible. But to actually have to pick up the phone or go to someone in person and say, I was wrong. What
Gosh.
can I do to make it right? Like that's what grown-ups do, right? So like, are we grown-ups or
Mm,
are we not? Right? Like that's how you make true relationships as well,
right.
right? And those people might, I mean, because I've had it both ways. Like those people might look at you and go, thanks, but fuck you, right? And they're just like, you, whatever, right? But and other
Too
ones are gonna be
late
like,
for apologies or whatever.
yeah, but other people are gonna be like, you know what? I had completely forgotten about it, but thank you so much for coming. And then like you build this whole new
Mm,
relationship, from it as well, because you don't know what's going to happen, but you're living in the fear and the expectation of the story that you already wrote in your head of what's going to happen. So, like, before you even go meet with this person or have a conversation with somebody, you've already written the story of, like, well, I'm going to say this, and then they're going to say this, and then I'm going to say, oh, and then I'm going to give them a zinger on this one because I'll get them, right? Like, we've all done that. And then that's what builds that anticipation and that anxiety that goes into it. Where if you're just like, I'm just going to do this thing, and then whatever happens, happens, and I'm going to be okay with it, right? And so understanding that and mastering that to a point where if I'm wrong, I take the time to actually admit that I'm wrong and apologize for it, like sincerely, not like an asshole, but like I actually mean it. And then the last thing is, because like I said, there has to be three, is the last piece of the steps is, for the steps part of it, is working with another alcoholic, right? Is helping other people, because helping other people is what's going to keep you inside of your kind of your system, right? In your program. But for me, it extends way outside of that, inside of my industry. I mean, I coach people inside of my industry to be better business owners so that we can do things the right way, right? And I coach people. I have a client that I help that literally is in my market and is a direct competitor of me, of what we do for a living. And he's like, "Is that weird?" And I'm like, yeah, normally it would be, but I'm like, no, because
right.
I want you to be awesome, right? Because if it was all a bunch of us's in this market, like everybody be taken care of and nobody be doing things the wrong way. And so like there's plenty of market and money to go around. So like let's figure out how to do it, like live abundantly, not narrow-mindedly, right? And so having that last step of there of like everything that I do now is built around how do I help more people, because that's what actually fulfills me. Now I got to figure out how the money comes from that too, because I can't do any
Right.
of those things if I don't have the money. So I have to be selfish and put the oxygen on myself first and make sure
Right.
that I have capital, so that I can go do those things, right? Which is why I work
Yeah.
so hard, on the business. But that's what fills my bucket. So, right, if I can
Mm.
buy the freedom, over here so that I can continue to fill my bucket over here, then that's the win.
I love that. I love that. It just made me remember Jocko Willick's quote, discipline equals freedom. And
Yeah.
so, to your point about buying freedom, it's like discipline in exchange for freedom. And then the world's your oyster. I wanted to just, in kind of wrapping things up here, there's a couple of things that I made note of while we were talking that lends to us being able to determine, what's most important in life. Literally creating space in our calendar, creating space to then, journal. You talked about that, to journal, to listen, listening both in terms of actually asking questions, going into rooms, hearing what other people have to say, but also I think it is like literally listening when you're alone in the quiet, what actually comes out of you, and creating the space for that. Also the community piece that stood out to me too, because you have been intentional to go put yourself in rooms where maybe you didn't necessarily feel like you belonged at the beginning. You went into that room with Sam Tabbets. And so anything else you would add to that? Creating space, shutting up and listening, journaling, community. What else?
So the other thing that I did, and I've lived my entire life not feeling like I belonged anywhere, which was a lot of the reason that I think that I drank and used and caused all the problems that I did, and the mayhem in my life. I never felt like I belonged anywhere. And so that was why I was kind of searching and trying to find different groups, right? And different things that I would fit into. It's why I love playing sports, right? It's why I grew up playing baseball and football and all these things, because I felt part of this team, and we had this collective goal in mind, right? I might hate the guy outside of the team, that like outside of the practice and the game. Um, but when we were sitting next to each other, going to war, right? Like I would do anything for him to take care of him, and he would do the same for me, right? And I missed that, because I didn't feel like I said, like I belonged anywhere. And so I was searching for that, and I was joining all of these different groups. And for me, I couldn't find it, right? I couldn't find it. And I would be somewhere for a minute, and I would think, oh, maybe this is the one. When I came to New York, I was like, oh, maybe this is the one. Maybe that one's the one. And for me personally, like it wasn't. And so I made a decision, and I was like, you know what? If I can't find what I'm looking for, then I'm going to create what I'm looking for. And so that was what I did when I created, and I created around the things that I care about, right? Like the things that I care about are scuba diving. So I created a mastermind called Exhale, where I put 15 men in a house on the ocean in Grand Cayman, and we go scuba diving. And I bring in breathing experts and mindfulness experts, and we sit there and we meditate and like do all this goofy woo woo shit, but a bunch of alpha men that love to shoot guns and kill shit. And you know what I mean? Like we all have "don't tread on me" flags in our house. Like we're all fucking nuts. But we go to these retreats, and we sit there and we learn how to breathe, and we learn how to like get level, and we learn how to get calm, and like how to like find our inner peace, and go dive where like nobody can call me on the phone when I'm 100 feet underwater, on air, and like nobody can bother me, and it's like it's quiet and it's amazing, and I'm only there with my own thoughts and the things that are around me. And so I built that, and that's honestly, of all the things that I built, it makes me the least amount of money, and it's the most fulfilling thing that I do, by far. By far. It's always that way though, right? Like it's always the thing that makes us
Yes.
most making money. That's the most fulfilling. But it's fine. Like I have other things that can pay the bills, but like that one is the most fulfilling. Like I wish that that could be my full-time gig,
Yeah.
because I absolutely love doing that.
I love it. Okay, so really, to how to determine what's important in your life, what's the problem that you actually want to solve for, and maybe go do it, and then maybe that's your thing. And to your point,
Yeah.
maybe you can actually be funded for it. That honestly, Eric, that's how I feel about knowing. Knowing is my mission, and I don't make money on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's okay. At some point, if I wanted to do this full time, I would have to be funded. I'm not a what's
Yeah.
it called? Wealth hedge fund baby or whatever it's called.
Right. Yeah.
But anyways, Eric, thank you so much. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for your time today. I'm so grateful. I love your approach to life. And it makes sense given your experience and the work that you've done on yourself and how you do apply, you've got your rules for life. to harken back to Jordan Peterson. And I know he's kind of changed a lot over the last few years, but we all need these rules. And what are the guiding principles for our lives? Because they will show up in our business, and if we don't have them, that will reflect in our business as well. So
100%.
Eric, how can people learn more about you, stay in touch?
There is not another Eric Oberembt in the world. So if you put my name in, you will find me, ericoberembt.com. That is the easiest way to find me, get in touch with me, check out the other stuff that I have going on, get my book, whatever. I am not a pitch man. I'm here. You find me and want to learn more about me, hit me up. We'll respond to a DM and we'll see if it's a fit. And if it is, great. If it's not, I'll probably tell you who you would fit with to be able to help you with whatever it is that you're looking to do.
Love it. And tune into his podcast, Be Authentic. And Eric, thank you again for your time. Really grateful for you, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me.